Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. You are now entering Season 2 of the Swan Hockey Podcast. Swan Hockey is flying around the junior hockey world one episode at a time. You'll experience things dreams are made of, as well as things of terrible nightmares. Strap in, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And now, Swan Hockey.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Swan Hockey. We are in Season 2. I am Eric Swanek, and we are joined once again by Bill Underwood, who is now an OHL champion. Kitchener Rangers have won the J. Ross Robertson Cup, not to be confused with the NA's Robertson Cup. Bill, congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Eric. It's great. It's nice to have won. It's a big accomplishment for everybody in the organization, and now we go on to the Memorial Cup, and hopefully can put a good showing on out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're new here, Bill is a scout with the Kitchener Rangers. You've been for what, about 5 years now, somewhere around there?
Oh no, since 2010.
Oh, all right, longer than I had thought. So
yeah, a long time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What made this team so special?
Well, I think we just had a good group of guys, excellent players, excellent coach. Our general manager did a tremendous job. We brought in some really key guys through some trades during this season, and we added to what we already had, and I think we have good leadership on this team, some great character, some guys that understand how to win, that really are good leaders, and a group of guys that are winners. Entire 20 odd man lineup of winners.
Yeah, no, it's so great. I mean, that's such a sweet championship to win. You got one more now, Memorial Cup. So for anyone that's just getting into junior hockey, the Memorial Cup is the overall CHL championship. So the winner of the OHL, the QMJHL, the WHL, plus the host team, which will come from one of those three leagues, the four of them will have a tournament. And the winner of that is the Memorial Cup champions, which, next to the Stanley Cup, that's got to be the biggest trophy. Maybe the NCAA Division I championship, but I don't know, Memorial Cup is pretty, in the hockey world, Memorial Cup has got to be, right next to the Stanley Cup, no?
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, it's we have had so many great future NHLers come through there, and it's a long time tradition. It's over 100 years old. It's a tradition that's been there and for a long time. A lot of great teams, a lot of great players, and a direct part of the NHL development system. Really, it's something that's it's always been considered. Yeah. After the Stanley Cup, you talk Memorial Cup, and now you see the NC2A Frozen Four rise up to be a very important championship. Of course, that's excluding international championships like the Olympics, and those things too, which are huge. But excluding those, in terms of league championships, the Calder Cup's big in the AHL, but the difference is the AHL, that is a secondary professional championship, not to sneeze at it, but this is the top junior championship, and it's also, in case of the NCAA Frozen Four, the top college championship.
Yeah, absolutely. So just such a prestigious thing. Now, what's going to be really cool is if Leo and the Moncton Wildcats win the Q. So if you've been part of our Swan Hockey community for a while now, you probably know Leo Gould, maybe have even met him. So Leo is a scout for the Moncton Wildcats in the QMJHL, and they are in their final series. They are tied two games apiece with Chicoutimi. And if Moncton wins, they won last year. If they win again this year, Bill and Leo are going to meet in the Memorial Cup, which would be really, really cool.
Yeah, it would be. It's always the thing about the Memorial Cup is a very challenging type of championship to win. You have a situation where you have, of course, two other league champions, and you have a home team who always loads up on talent for that year, so they know they're hosting in advance, and of course they are the home team. So there's no easy opponent there. And it's not a one and done thing. You have to do a round robin, then it becomes one and done. You have to win several games in order to win this thing. You have to basically have to finish in the top 3 to be in the playoffs. And of course, if you're tied for third, there is a playoff game that you play. But then second and third are in the semi, and the of course first place team goes to the final. It's a very difficult championship to win. It's because you eventually get to that 1 game knockout, but hey, you just say that about a 7 game series. It is a 1 game knockout once you get to 7 games, but it's the getting to the that final knockout game part that's tricky. It's because every team here knows how to win. Like I say, in Kitchener, we draft guys that we know have a good winning mentality. We had them. We added to them additionally some experienced guys, and our other guys matured. They got experience. They're all winners. And the same way in every one of those locker rooms. And that home team, something, they've been juiced from the beginning of this year, knowing they're getting to this thing. So they have a mentality of they're playing it for their home fans. They want to win, and it's something they've been gearing up for all year because they know they're there. And some people will say you have some time off sometimes as home team. Does that hurt you? Well, my best answer to that is it can, but there are historical examples that teams have been off for several weeks. Even one team, Windsor Spitfires, are off, as I recall, 50 odd days, and they still won. Those teams are always very difficult, and so even if they're not champions of their league, they're always a very difficult team to play against. That home team is.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's interesting, like the time off versus, because some people would feel, hey, maybe it's better to just keep rolling. We're playing, we'll keep rolling. Now you guys have been cooking, right? So you guys, I'm looking at it here. You guys swept Saginaw, right? So you swept the first round, then Sault Ste. Marie, you beat in 5, and then Windsor, you beat in 5, and then Barrie, you just swept in the finals. So you guys have been making quick work. You guys are going to get a little bit of extra time off in a way, because obviously the Q is still going and then the dub is still going. So you guys, you guys made very quick work, but it is an interesting dynamic between the time off versus continuing to play. And, then you throw in the dynamic of once you get to the, obviously you want to get to the, where it's, where each game is like one and done, or 1 game knockout rather is a better way to put it, in the Memorial Cup, which is so different than the 7 game series that you guys have been playing. Cause in the CHL, everybody plays 7 game series, just like the NHL for playoffs.
Well, it is a case. Yeah. The time off is certainly going to be a little bit different for each team, but every team is different about it. And I think that those teams that have been off before have proven that you can do it with time off. And so, I even like I say, Kelowna's been off, the home team's been off for a while, and so now I'm going to sit there and and say to myself, it's been done before. So it's not like that it's not like they necessarily have rust on them as much as people think. Now, as far as the series goes, you want to win as many games as you can in this series, because remember, basically, the more games you win, the better off you are. If you can win all 3 round robin games, you're getting a bye to the finals. You don't have to worry about that semifinal thing.
Yeah.
And of course, being second place, winning those 2 games is very nice, because you're probably avoiding a tiebreaker game. And then but you are going to be in a semi. It's in that situation, only winning 1 game. That is where you can run into some issues here and get into tiebreaker situations and get into that playoff game thing, in which case you're going to have to play 1 and done playoff, 1 and done semi, and you have to win a 1 and done final. So this is not a championship you can really just win with 1 or 2 wins. It doesn't work that way. You're probably going to win a minimum of 4 games, 3 to 4 games. You're probably to win. And so it's almost like a best of 7 series. The only difference is it's with different opponents. You have to win all those games. It's not like the Frozen Four, which is really scary, because 1 and done, boom, boom. Here, you're going to have to, but of course, they have a long playoff just like we do to get there. But the thing is, when you get here now, it's not just that 1 and done, not just win 1 and 2 games It's more than that in order to win this trophy. That's why in some ways it's one of the toughest championships to win, because there's no just one and done thing till the end, and it's really not. It's more like a seventh game. You have to win several games to win, and you're playing against other championship teams. I've been through it before. You're not playing against teams or just playoff teams or champions, and a home team that may not be a champion, but hey, they're that home team, and they're a team that is a unique home team situation, because for 1 year these guys have known they've had this. They've been sitting here all year. They've known we're going to host this. So if you were on that team, you are knowing this is coming up, and so you've been mentally geared for it all year.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's an interesting point that you made with that. It's a tournament of champions, right? And like where every team has those championship caliber qualities about them. Like even looking at what you guys did. So this last series, you guys swept, but 2 of those games were in overtime, right? Like you won 2 games in overtime. And those are some of those things of like championship caliber teams that you see where it's like, okay, we're winning the overtime games. We're getting that secondary scoring from the third and fourth lines, and everything's clicking. There's certain things that need to click that are, again, qualities of championship teams. And like you guys obviously clearly had it. You guys, what was it? 5 all series combined. You guys won 5 overtime games this playoffs, right? So no one had a win. Was it 5? Hold on. I'm looking at it now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. You guys won 5 overtime games this playoff series, and I'm sure some of the
double overtime. Went to double overtime too. So it's we've been through a lot through it all. So
yeah. Game 3 against Barry, double overtime. Yeah. But no, you guys are just cooking all playoffs. You guys had some big crowds too.
Oh, we always do. Our franchise, has a building that seats over 7,000, and we pretty much fill it.
Yeah,
every night.
I'm looking here. It's most of these games were over 7,000.
It's
for your home games.
In KW, which is a pretty decent sized community. It actually is a big deal. This team is the big thing in town. People don't understand. A lot of people in the U.S. don't understand how big major junior hockey is in Canada. It's not unlike U.S. college Division I football or basketball. A town gets really behind a team. It is the team in town. So like I say, there's that mentality. It's like D1 college football or basketball. We're not the NHL, but we get that type of attention in that town. It's like getting attention an NHL team would get in a major city. We get that type of attention in our communities. We have television, we have radio, we're the big thing in town. We get newspaper coverage. It's not just a thing in town, it's the thing in town when we're playing. And so it's something that it's a long time tradition too. Remember junior hockey, it's not major junior, because major junior only is officially established in the 70s, but you in fact had major junior because we were the OHA before we became the OHL, and we were the top farm league, NHL in junior hockey prior to that, when they were allowed sponsorship, where they had direct farm teams in our league. But you've had junior hockey, and the Memorial Cup is over 100 years old, and the Rangers, we've been there since 1963, long time. It's a long time franchise that we've had there. So it's not something that's a new tradition. It's something that's a very old tradition. It's something that's very much ingrained in the communities. It's ingrained into Canada. I mean, the Memorial Cup is televised nationally. It's something that gets a great deal of attention, great deal of fanfare. It's something that's not a small event. It's something that is a very much coast-to-coast event. There's nothing like it in the United States outside of the Stanley Cup, where we have, of course, national attention to the Stanley Cup. But even different here, it's there vast swaths of the United States that really don't follow the Stanley Cup very much. In Canada, it's the national game, and this is the next biggest thing in Canada to the Stanley Cup. So you just figure, it's sort of like the United States, college, the Super Bowl, and you have college
they
football.
don't win those. They don't win Stanley Cups, so.
Well, that might change. Hopefully, at some point, you'll see. You always like to see teams from all different places win. Any great hockey town like to see win Stanley Cups. But the bottom line is, it's really enough Stanley
the
Cups
Canadian corner of the
years.
community. I'm sorry, I had to.
Well, certainly there's been a lot of Stanley Cups in Canada over the years, and there will be more. It's just a question of, hey, look, we have 32 teams. It's crazy. It's something that does create a scenario where you're less likely to have cup champs from one area repeatedly all that long. I mean, look, hey, how long has it been? I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but how long has it been since we won one in Philadelphia?
Quite some time.
To give you a hint, it's been a half century. It's been 50 years. So we're only 10 years behind the Leafs. And that's not to bring up a sore subject. I'm from Philadelphia. That's just a point to be. New York, how long did the Rangers go without a Stanley Cup? Now, granted, you have the Islanders in the meantime with a few. But, it just shows you Chicago's won. They had the curse of Muldoons. They won a cup in 1961, and we'll have to wait how long to win another one.
Well, and Florida's just killing it. Like, as a state, I mean, they've won 4 Stanley Cups in recent times.
Well,
plus, you look at the Everblades in the ECHL. They just won. They didn't win last year, but they won before that. I think it was they won three Kelly Cups in a row or 4 Kelly Cups in a row. Sunshine State is killing it.
Not to scare the people of Florida, but remember Alberta was that way in the 1980s.
Well, that was before my time. I'll take your word for it.
Oilers and the Flames had a major streak of winning Stanley Cups. And, how many, it's been a long time since there's been a cup in Alberta, unfortunately for folks in Alberta. So it just shows you, how it can work. It's very cyclical, and you have 32 teams, and now you have a salary cap. So to say you're going to have, dynasties. Look, Florida, the Panthers probably did about as good as you get as a dynasty in a modern era. You're probably not going to do better than that. That's about as good as you can do. It's with the salary cap, with free agency, for you to maintain a champion, to get that third year, getting 2 years is tough enough. Yeah. 3 years is almost mission impossible these days. You have such turnover. You have so many issues come into play. You can't keep a team together that well.
Yeah, you just got
those days are over.
You got to get the guys that are top end guys that are willing to take a little pay cut to play in the sunshine, like guys that love that atmosphere, that climate, and are like, hey, maybe even if they're towards the end of their career, it's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'll take a little less to just go settle down in Florida.
Problem is, you're not going to have the continuity though, because you're still going to have those free agents. You still have guys getting greener pastures elsewhere, or just not happy with their situation on a team. It is so hard to keep the team together. It's very hard to keep a team together. They're just plain old have guys age and decline, and just keeping a team together. People have no idea how hard it is in the era of a salary cap. In the old days, you just go out and either hold guys' rights forever, or else you go out and just pay a ridiculous amount. You can just throw that huge bag of money on the table and get away with it. It was different. But now everybody is I wouldn't say an even playing field. Those Florida teams do have one big advantage on a lot of teams, is they don't have state income tax. So that does help Florida, no question. They have that one little edge that nobody else, they really don't have elsewhere so much. And it's, but it comes down to still that cap does even things out considerably. It's not like it was at one time. If you were that, like the Maple Leafs have all the money in the world, so do the Rangers, so does Philly, so does Detroit. If they wanted to throw money around at one time, they could really be bully boys. Not so much anymore. They're limited like everybody else in what they can do.
Yeah. But no, Florida's been killing it though.
They have been, but as I say, all good things come to an end for the folks in Florida, and good things start for somebody elsewhere. So I think I think that it's hard in any league to have a dynasty today. In major junior, it's very difficult. Always was, because your players age out, and your top players, some will be lost to the National Hockey League or whatever. You lose players, so it's hard to repeat. It really is hard to repeat. But now and of course, college hockey, same thing. You're going to have guys graduate. You have some guys turn pro. How do you maintain a dynasty? Yeah. The answer is you really don't. Well, NHL's become more like those two.
Yeah, Leo and Moncton, they could be on year 2 here. Well, yeah, I guess we'll know in the coming days. But yeah, they could be on their way to the second one. They got to win the second one and got to win one more.
Year 2 can be done. Year 3 is where it gets really, it's hard for year 2, but you get to year 3, that's when it really gets hard, especially given that probably you've traded a lot of draft choices to get where you are. So it's something that gets really, really hard. And, it's something that, again, no league is structured for dynasties anymore, including the NHL. The NHL is very much not constructed for dynasties because, again, if you have a dynastic team, it means you have a lot of players playing well, and a bunch of guys will come into your office and start pounding on the table asking for more money. And every other team saying these guys
more money, more playing time, bigger role.
And not to mention, every other team in the league says these guys are winners. So we're going to throw some money on the table to steal this guy from you. And it's you're to the point, and you never have contracts that in sync. You can't have that many long-term contracts. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, especially because you have to pay your top guys. You go to those long-term contracts at HL, so you're paying those top guys such an inordinate amount of money that how many guys under a cap can you afford to have that sort of salary? You can't, and that's what the whole thing is sort of. It's more about cost control, but in the end, this is a side effect. Dynasties probably are over. It's you might have seen the closest thing in the Panthers that you're going to see to a dynasty.
Yeah. Well, and then Tampa right before them.
Yeah, but look at what's happening.
I know Tampa was a little bit different, right? It was the COVID years and whatnot.
Yeah. But again, you might have seen, but the Panthers were after that. So I'm saying they might have been the last you're going to see that.
Oh yeah.
Or I should say that I wouldn't say the last. I would never say the last. But I think they might be the epitome of what you can see are those teams. That 2-year champion. 3 years is going to be really hard to repeat. 3 years is something that in any league. So I think in terms of to build a champion, what you do is you think about Florida. We did the same thing this year. We added some very key players. You have a great cast. You add those key players. You feel like you're close, like you can maybe do it. So you want to go out and get those few more key pieces. Well, you can do that, but at the same time, it's a case. It's hard for you to do that every year and to keep the other casts together because you're invariably going to lose players. Now, I'm not saying you can't win a great deal in major junior. Of course you can. There's some teams and some teams we do. Look, in Kitchener, we never expect to lose. That's one thing we never expect to do is lose. But at the same time, to put together a Memorial Cup caliber team on a year-to-year basis. There aren't many teams that have done it, for more than 2 years. Would it be nice to be a team that would break that pattern? Yeah, but that's again, I'm bringing this up because that's how hard it is to get to this event. And college hockey is also very hard to get to that point. The difference in college hockey is there are some colleges that clearly have a recruiting advantage. There's no question. Some teams have major now there are in major junior too. But in college hockey, you come to the powerhouses that really, since there's no draft, it's all just going out and recruiting, year after year after year. What kid doesn't want to play for Boston University? You don't have I once had somebody say from BU, I won't name the coach, it was a coach that's no longer there, but he says, I don't want to sound cocky, but it's not a matter of who can we get, but who do we want to pick? I think he's 100% right. That it's a matter they don't have a draft and they don't have to go out and bend people's arms and twist them to go there. No. Just they make the offer of the guy they want. They're probably getting them. And so in college you can build a real powerhouse program, probably in a lot of ways easier than doing it in NHL or major junior because that draft factor. And you have also the fact
everybody's a free agent, and when you could win the free agent, I literally just had this conversation with someone about a half hour ago on the phone. When you can win those battles, the powerhouses keep becoming the powerhouses. And we were actually talking about it in terms of major junior, where if we ever reached a point where we saw the territories go away, right, that would be again, like the draft will still influence it, but it's the more those barriers you remove, the more in favor it becomes for the strongest teams and the richest teams if they're willing to spend the money.
Well, at one time in major junior, the Americans did have that. It was wide open. You could sign in any league you wanted. And there were some nasty bidding wars, literally, in the 1980s. And they got rid of that. And, of course, you got the American teams in the leagues, too, which played a role, too. But also there were some really nasty bidding wars back in the early 80s between the leagues for your really top American players. And, so that was over. Now in Canada, you never had that. You always have the strict rules about territories, and it makes sense because, it keeps kids closer to home. And it also, is a case of developing hockey across the country. Now, at one time, it was a little bit more lax because back when there's still sponsorship, you would see a lot of teams. Like at one time, the Ontario Hockey Association was where every NHL team was their number one sponsored club. So you had a whole bunch of guys taken from Quebec by the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins in the 60s to play in Ontario. They played in Guelph, and of course was our predecessor. Guelph moved to Kitchener back then, and you had guys playing in Niagara Falls, guys like Bernie Perrott, guys like Gilles Marat. They were Boston Bruin prospects that were transplanted over to Ontario. You had Western kids brought to the East too. Terry Sawchuk, Hall of Fame goaltenders, a Winnipeg kid, but he played his junior hockey in Ontario. That's where the Red Wings had their top farm team. They signed him out of Winnipeg and brought him east. But then as we drifted into the 60s and sponsorship ended, there was always a controversy in the 50s about how Western teams are being plundered by the East to bring guys, and it stunted junior hockey in the West. It wasn't the greatest thing for junior hockey in the West. So there are a lot of controversies. And of course, you saw it evolve as we got into the 60s, and the sponsorship ended. We had the structure that we see today evolve. We have the three leagues evolve, and OHA became the OHL. The Western Canada Hockey League unified the Western provincial leagues back in '67, and then of course you had the then Quebec Major Junior League, now Quebec Maritimes League, start in 1969 when they took two leagues in Quebec and combined them. And Quebec doing that, and us having done that, we eventually evolved. The Canadian Hockey League formed under one umbrella in the 70s, and that's how it's evolved since. It's been the CHL ever since.
Interesting.
But you even had little border battles even right when that immediately happened. Like, for example, the Montreal Junior Canadiens used to play in the OHA. And then there was a lawsuit in the early 70s that the QMJHL brought up saying, wait a minute, they should play in Quebec. They won that lawsuit. And
it's like Mighty Ducks with the district lines with Adam Banks.
It sort of is. It sort of was. And so what happened was the Montreal Junior Canadiens actually became the Kingston Canadiens in our league, and the Montreal Red, White, and Blue was formed in the Quebec Major Junior League. So yeah, that happened. And of course, you did have one anomaly, that Cornwall was allowed to play in the Quebec Major Junior League back till 1982. They were Cornwall, Ontario. And actually, the interesting thing is the Royals participated in the OHA draft, OHA and OHL drafts until they moved over to the Quebec leagues. They're Ontario kids playing in Quebec, so that was an interesting little anomaly. But it was something that eventually that changed. They switched leagues and came over to Ontario, where they belonged in the first place. And then, of course, the Quebec Maritime League became the Quebec Maritimes League, when they started having teams move, not as much expand, but teams move out of Quebec to play in the Maritimes. When you had the American Hockey League start to leave the Maritimes, that used to be American Hockey League territory. You had a ton of NHL farm teams, NHL farm teams, the AHL there, and those teams began to move and whatever, and Major Junior moved in. It's sort of like even out west, Seattle and Portland used to be the old Western Hockey League and Pro. Then the Western Hockey League folded, and that's when the WHL moved in the Pacific Northwest. Because after the WHL folded, you got Seattle, you got Portland, and you had eventually added some other cities in there. And so it's interesting how it's evolved. We, to a degree, have a little bit of that too, because we have Flint and Saginaw that for a long time were old-time minor pro cities in the IHL.
Yeah,
they pulled out of the IHL and they went to the OHL. So it's an interesting evolution how it all happened.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. I want to leave everybody with, and feel free to not give away too much if you don't want to, but through your eyes, you personally, as an OHL scout, what are the biggest things you're looking for in a player?
Well, it's like for any league, you're looking for the unteachables. I always like to say, I like to see things that we can't make a player. Things like size, of course, we had talked about Exceptional speed, not just speed, but exceptional speed. Hockey sense. Hockey sense, you can't teach hockey sense. Natural goal scorer, you can't teach a natural goal scorer. Work ethic, you can't teach work ethic. Character is important. But what we're looking for the OHL, keep in mind, is we want players that are potentially to be drafted by the National Hockey League that can play in the top level of junior in the world. That's number one. Players that we feel can play in that top level junior, and a guy that potentially could be an NHL pick. And you're looking for players, and therefore the sort of players the National Hockey League would be interested in. We're really a mirror of the National Hockey League. People always ask, "What's our league like?" I always say, "Watch the NHL and give a pretty good idea," because whatever they do, we do, because we develop players basically with them in mind. So we have the closest relationship that way. So I'm looking for a player that can hopefully not just be a good major junior player, a really good major junior player, which is asking a lot to begin with, but a guy who potentially is a pro player. You look for a guy that you say that I could see this guy playing NHL style hockey. You look at a guy that, again, he has to be a high end talent. We're not looking for very average players. You should, the type of people always ask about free agents in OHL. You look at most of our free agents we sign, which are very few. They're all Division I commits. So we're looking at the same guys Division I teams are looking for. We're looking at that type of talent, that type of early blooming talent that can be a Division I type player at the very least. That's with us, that's the very least we'd like to see, as guys end up being a good junior player and hopefully a good college player secondarily. But you get to what we really want is we want a guy that could be a pro player. We want a guy that we can see playing professional hockey. Not all order to do it, and we know that. But you want to have guys you think have the possibility of it and can compete with and against guys that are future pros. A lot of guys are future pros. A lot of guys, will do it either directly to the National Hockey League, or some guys might go through Division I college. But a large number of these guys will go right to professional hockey. The next stop, AHL or NHL. And so you've got to be able to compete against that type of athlete and play that style of hockey. It's not going to be an easy style of hockey. You're not going to find wide open ice. You're not going to find it, a slow paced game. It's a very fast paced game. And so you've got to be a high level player. And, so to put it bluntly, in my territory here that I watch, every year my list is very short and sweet around here. It's not a long list at all of players that really have a lot of interest in drafting. And our league is only likely to draft a very small number. It's not going to be a very large number. It's that hard. You're competing against, remember, not only just players in your own backyard, but players from Detroit, from Chicago, from Wisconsin, from St. Louis, from Pittsburgh, all those areas, New York State, and then this area. Plus you have Ontario. And then, we do have our Euro spots, which we'll use. We'll use our import spots. So you're competing against an entire province, which is the most talent-rich province in Canada. You're going against an area of this country that's large and a lot of good players, and you're also going against Europeans. It's a very competitive group of athletes.
Yeah, and our area is only getting better too.
Oh, absolutely. But still, nonetheless, there's a lot of other great areas too. It's just competing against other great areas. There are only so many. And you got to understand that, like out of our league, I remember one year, the top line on one of our top teams all went directly to the National Hockey League the next year as 18, 19, and 20-year-old. Each one played in the NHL directly off a team.
Yeah,
now that's a pretty scary achievement. You have guys that can do that, and you have, so you're going against that type of athlete. You're going against players who are high-end players. Some guys will be high NHL picks. It's a very difficult league to play in. So you've got to be a high-end athlete, and you should be a pro-style athlete. If you're a guy that needs a lot of room, it's probably not going to work out. If you're a guy that's slow-footed, it's probably not going to work out. You have to be, it's a very elite player. So and look, I've been there before in terms of scouting elite players. I scouted the National Hockey League, and it's the same deal. You're looking for that high-end player that has those unteachables. You can teach a guy to play defense. As long as he's willing to do it, as long as he has a mindset, he'll learn. You can teach guys to play defense. You can teach guys a lot of things in this game. But what you can't teach is that innate hockey sense, that split-second decision. That's something you have or you don't. Being smart is important. Now skating ability is important, but you can improve skating ability. But one thing you can only improve so much is speed. if you're an exceptionally fast player, that can't be taught. You can be taught to get faster. You get to get out of stride, but you're not going to be like Paul Coffey when he played, or like today Connor McDavid. You can't teach that. A kid has that acceleration and that speed, or he doesn't. It's just like any other sport. Speed is there or it's not. I can't teach a player to be 6'5". He is or he isn't. Can't teach that stuff. And scoring is uncanny. It's an uncanny knack. God gives you the ability to score. Nobody else can teach you how to score. I could spend a month of Sundays trying to tell you how to score, but I can't make you a big-time goal scorer. That's something that you have a knack for. And, some guys, it's just the darndest knack. You can't figure out what it is. They have to have an instinct of being in the right place at the right time. They might have a really good shot, a quick release, which again is very difficult to teach, to have that release and accuracy. It's a matter of a lot of things, but teaching goal scoring, I don't know anybody can teach goal scoring. It's something you either have or you have. I could help a guy score a few more goals, but making a 50-goal scorer, you're delusional if you think somebody can teach you how to score 50 goals. Nobody can.
Well, one point that I love that you brought up, because I think it really puts it into perspective for people to realize, is that you said you had your whole first line. There was 1 year your whole first line went directly to the National Hockey League.
That's our team. I don't put a plug in for a major rival, but I'll do full disclosure. It was the London Knights back when they had Patty Kane was playing for them. Him, Gagne, and Kositsyn it was.
Oh, I thought you meant from Kitchener. It was from London.
No. It was OHL though, but it was a London line back about over 20 years when Patty Kane was still there. But to say that we haven't had lines go up and all play in the NHL in the past. I can remember Brandon Wheatkins back in the 80s. Same thing happened. The Brian Prop's entire line went up. And
the point that I wanted to make for players and parents listening is like just think about that. Like, think about how high of a level the league is, where you have guys that are playing junior hockey in the league in April, and then in October, a handful of months later, they're playing in a National Hockey League. Like, it's crazy when you put it into that perspective. And I think a lot of people don't realize that perspective.
No, and that's the thing. You're not used to playing against that many NHL prospects coming up through youth hockey in most areas. So It's a different experience. For most kids, it's like, wow, I played against him. He went on to the NHL, and that might have been the only guy you ever did that with. Here, you're playing against a lot of guys who get NHL. And it's a different world. Yeah,
and it's crazy. And think about the guys that go to the NHL and are like, top end guys day one in the NHL, and they're playing major junior, 5 months before that or whatever. And now they're they're not only in the NHL, but they're ripping the NHL.
Well, look at Schaefer this year. I mean, hey, a guy that was one of the best rookie defensemen in how many years to crack the league. Coming right out of junior, he is a guy that last year is a major junior. And for them to have landed a guy like that, in a draft, and have him come right up, that's you have how many guys have come up from the league, the league's last 2 years have been doing that. It's pretty incredible when you look at it. And these are the type of guys you'll be playing against. You might be playing against the next Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux or Connor McDavid. All of them played major junior. Gretzky played in the OHL, so did McDavid. And of course, Lemieux played in the Quebec. In fact, it was a Quebec major junior league. He played the QMJHL. And so those are the type of guys you just may be running into.
Crosby.
Crosby and our QMJHL guy.
Tavares, OHL. Stamkos. The list goes on. But yeah, hey, I'm jacked up for you, Bill. I'm excited for the Memorial Cup. I'm excited for Leo. Hopefully Leo gets in it as well.
Yeah.
But
good luck, Leo. I'd like to see you get in there. It'd be great to see you out. Just to see you guys out there too.
Yeah, and I was just talking to him a little bit before. I talked to Roger Shannon today, who won a Memorial Cup with the Lewiston Maniacs back when in a Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. But anything else you want to end off on, Bill?
Well, I think that one thing that I think with any championship team, what people have to understand is character. It's such an important thing, character. And you have to have character to win a title. And that's an important thing we look for as scouts. And, you want those players to draft those players. You want to acquire those players. You want those guys in the locker room that are capable of winning and understand what it takes to win. And it's something that that not every player really gets, because it's something that you have to have. It's a matter of keeping your pedal to the metal, not panicking, being very consistent, and you having leadership and just the whole character issue is something that is hard to measure statistically, but it's there. And it's one of the most important things. And, it just shows you how a hockey team works. It's really a multifaceted thing. As scouts, we, of course, find players. But, and the players, of course, are the guys that do the winning. But the coach has to get the players winning. Our coach is an excellent coach. He does a great job. We play a tremendous system. And it's something that, that's a huge thing. And the general manager is a part that we just can't underestimate enough. What Mike did for us this year is amazing. He added some players in a very timely fashion and the right guys to add to the mix, because you always have to consider that I don't think there's a team that wins a title in professional sports or in junior that hasn't had to add a few pieces as you go along. Now, look, even college hockey is getting that way more and more. How many transfers are they adding? It's like, okay, we still need this one little thing. And guess what? The transfer portal, it's there. So, that general manager aspect is so vital, making those timely. The Florida Panthers, think about what happened adding our everybody's buddy from Boston. How timely that trade was, and how important that was. He was such a key factor, and he was on the market. They went out and they grabbed him, and no matter how many points he put up in the playoffs, that was only a tiny bit of what he contributed. And going out and getting those guys, that's so important. And, it's something that, it's a team effort from top to bottom. And, it's something that
100%.
It's not an easy thing to do. And, having been at this a long time and been on a lot of teams that fell short, now here with one that has come through to this point, you see a big difference. And I've been on finalist teams at ECHL. You see a big difference in those teams, and it's a difficult thing to build, and it's something that really I think people have to understand. It's not any one thing or another. It's a lot of things have to come into play, and it's not an easy thing to pull together.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, congratulations again, Bill. I'm extremely happy for you and excited for you for the.
Thanks.
For the Memorial Cup. Best of luck there.
Thanks. You always need luck in sports too, and we're going against some great teams, but we're a good team ourselves, so we should we're hoping to do what we can do.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be an awesome tournament, awesome event. Guys, hop into Discord if you're not already. Join the conversation. Conversation always continues there. You can get to the Discord from the link in the description of this episode. And until next time, I will see you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Swan Hockey Podcast. We remind you that season pass points are available to listeners. For more information, please visit www.swanhockey.io. Until next time.